and welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. I'm so excited that you're joining us again this week, and I'm so excited today to have the extra special guest, the fabulous Lisa Evans, on the show today. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Michelle, and hello to all your wonderful viewers.
It's so great having you on the show today, Lisa, and I'm so super excited. I've known Lisa for a few years now, and it feels like I've been wanting to have you on the show for absolutely ages, because Lisa is an extraordinary human being, as well as being a fabulous, fabulous coach, mentor, advisor, assistant, you name it. Lisa is Lisa extraordinaire. For those of you that aren't as aware of Lisa, she has a business called Speaking Savvy. She's an executive coach, she's a presentations and a leadership expert, and she has many, many strings to her bow where she supports men, women, speakers, all sorts of people with many of their leadership needs, their mindset needs, as well as speaking and presentation. But I've probably not explained it as well, of course, as you could, Lisa. So please tell everybody, how did you come to have so many strings to your bow and be such a well-rounded and fabulous coach?
Thank you for that introduction, Michelle. So I began my career in a completely different field. I trained as a midwife when I still lived back in London, and that was my career for over 2 decades. I specialised. I worked in neonatal intensive care, so very high-tech, challenging area of nursing. Absolutely loved it. And then life sent me on a huge, huge detour, and I had to walk away from my clinical career, and I was left wondering, what am I going to do next? So I moved into the public service. I worked for the Department of Health for many years. I moved into contract management, procurement, and project management, and enjoyed doing that, and also became very interested in public speaking. So when I get interested in something, I tend to get a bit obsessive and jump right in and learn all that I can. So I was like a sponge. I engaged some of the best speakers and coaches and mentors around the world so that I could learn as much as possible about public speaking and presentation skills, becoming a certified speaker coach, and then realizing that my superpower is around storytelling. So these days I teach leaders how to tell better business stories.
Fabulous. And you've explained that journey so well there, Lisa. And I guess for many people watching, as a midwife and as a nurse through to helping executives with their leadership storytelling, it's quite a wide range of skill sets and backgrounds you've got. But what do you think you would say to people is success to you? What does success mean?
It's good that you brought up the fact that my careers are so different now, because it's only when you look back that you realize that you bring a lot of the skills and tools from any previous career that you've had into whatever you're doing now, and that really can set you apart. So I think that success means being well-rounded, but also being very comfortable in your own skin and knowing that whatever it is that you choose to do, you are bringing a huge amount of wisdom, of life experience, of different insights and ways of being. And often those things are not tangible. They're not written on certificates or badges or whatever. They really are make up the essence of you.
So beautifully put. And as I reflect on, the difference between you being there and guiding and coaching somebody giving birth, and guiding and coaching somebody because Lisa also helps out with TEDx in Perth and all sorts of other senior, events and executives, and coaching and guiding them through what can be challenging and difficult life journeys. I think you so beautifully put it that your wealth of expertise in different careers is the sum total of what you then bring in your beautiful way of supporting others to go through their challenges and journeys in life as well. And that's really, really lovely way of putting it. And nicely ties into where we're looking today at, what is it about the stories that we tell ourselves, and especially for women, tell ourselves, that might hold us back from speaking or hold us back from presenting ourselves in a way that we can be more successful. So, Lisa, I'm sure many people watching are dying to hear the sorts of advice and tips and observations that you can share that might help them to build a stronger and a more positive mindset for their own success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to start by saying that, we all have stories worth sharing. So don't ever think that your stories are not worth sharing, because sometimes I hear that, because the world does definitely need to hear stories from everybody. And you get to choose. You're the curator of your stories. You'll get to choose which ones to tell and who you're going to share them with. But it's always the most important story is the one that you tell yourselves. And often we find ourselves thinking something or saying something that becomes a habit that we may have been saying for a long time. Often it's the voice of a parent or an older person, an adult, a teacher in our younger years that comes back. And when we think about those storylines or those narratives, a lot of them are no longer useful. Even if they ever were useful, they are what we call unresourceful beliefs, negative self-beliefs, and unhelpful stories that can really hold us back. And when we realize that's what they are and we challenge that way of thinking and we start to flip that way of thinking and be willing to let go of those stories in whatever way works for you. You've got some wonderful tools for helping people to let go of the past. Then we can move forward. We can move forward with the stories that cheer us on, with the stories that set ourselves up to be successful. And I'm not talking about only sharing the wins and the wows. Of course, we do need to share those stories of learning and of losses and of times where we felt challenged and we've overcome certain challenges or we've done something differently as a result. But I'm talking about those unfounded negative narratives where we just find ourselves in that thought pattern, which usually begins with I'm not, or I can't, or that's not me. And usually they've got no evidence to support them.
That's such a great observation and so well put, wonderfully explained about those stories that don't support us, but that we may tell ourselves and come to believe is true when there's actually no evidence about it, but we can keep believing it. And I know one that I have fun with myself is I can't sing, or I can't draw, or I can't this, or I can't that.
Yeah.
So I actually belong to choirs, and I do drawings every year after I've worked out my goals and visions for the year coming ahead. I actually draw pictures around it. So it's funny hearing those voices, and everybody has them, that whether they came from parents or wherever it came from. I think one of the greatest tips for helping to create a different mindset and a more successful one is to start to observe those stories that you're telling yourself and how you can rewrite them, because they're not true, they're just stories in your head.
Exactly. And you may be able to do that yourself with journaling or just with that undoing the bad habits and reframing. But sometimes you might want to get some professional help. And I've certainly tried timeline therapy as part of my qualifying as an NLP practitioner. We did timeline therapy and I was able to pinpoint one of my very strong unhelpful narratives around writing and my ability to write, or what I thought my ability not to be able to write. And I was able to pinpoint the exact time when that thought was planted in my mind in order to be able to bust that limiting belief. So it's fascinating stuff.
It's incredible. And you raise a really good point, because sometimes it does need, like if you're learning a new physical sport, like playing tennis or something, many times changing and rewiring a lot of those thoughts, you do need support to first of all see what that thought or that pattern is, and then, like you're saying, timeline therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, there's many different ways of approaching it that we use as well that can support people in actually identifying it, becoming aware of it, and then changing it. And it's so important to even become aware that you're doing those behaviors. And I guess you, with the work that you do, you come across a number of women as well that have those behaviours, in a sense, stop them from shining and from sharing who they are more widely with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I work with a lot of senior leaders. I work with a lot of introverted women. I identify as being introverted and super smart people who are extremely talented, but often they've got a fear, or they hold back from putting themselves out there and sharing with the world their wonderful talents. And maybe it's from a past experience, maybe it's a message from growing up about, that whole, don't stop bragging about that. My mum used to say that to me, don't brag. If I came home with a certificate or something from school, I was allowed about 30 seconds, and then she'd say, right, put that away now and stop bragging. And some women are not really being their full selves, or working towards their full potential, because they're not able to articulate the amazing things that they do. And a lot of women are much more comfortable shining a light on others than they are themselves. But if you are a business owner, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're in an executive position, if you're not able to comfortably talk about what you do and who you serve and how you help others, then there's probably not somebody else who's going to do it for you.
That reminds me of a wonderful example, and it's so true. If you aren't presenting yourself and promoting yourself in that way, then others won't do it for you. And it can be harder. I think I completely agree. Women mostly, not always, take on that carer and that supporter role within the family, within the organisation, within even their own business. And to step away from those stories and to promote yourself more, it can be hard. I remember I was at a senior women's group one time, and we were talking about writing CVs and throwing some ideas out there. And I threw around words like thought leaders. And in my environment, when I'm with other entrepreneurs, we talk about thought leadership, and all of these terms are kind of normalized. But in this group, in this particular instance, it was senior C-suite women, and they would never think of themselves or define themselves as a thought leader, even though many of them in the room were, as CEOs of the organizations that they ran. And for me, it was quite a shocking realization that, if I'd stayed in corporate world completely, I would have had those beliefs as well, and kept, sort of shutting myself down and my natural behaviors down. And the entrepreneurial space, actually, I'm still very quiet compared to many. But that balance and seeing those two different worlds, it was quite interesting and quite a wake-up call to, I can't remember who it was, but there's a lot of wonderful stuff out there around surrounding yourself with the people that are going to help you to grow and blossom, and not trying to, grow and blossom. I then, in that example, talked about my LinkedIn connections and other things, because we were writing CVs to promote ourselves. And this same group of women, again, quite at the time, it was quite confronting. It felt like they were attacking me for promoting myself. And I realized then that, they didn't realize what they were doing, and they had a bias that they didn't realize that they were trying to place on me. And it did shake me at the time, but I'm sure you have similar experiences where the senior women that you're supporting are going back in an office environment and then finding that their colleagues, male or female, are reacting in a very strange way to why are you, like your example of your mum, why are you trying to big note yourself when really it's about that personal branding and that personal positioning of you're a thought leader, you're a leader, you're a whatever, and other people seeing you in that way because you describe yourself in that way, you use that language.
And we've got to be able to do it in a way that's authentic to us and feels comfortable for us. But there's a saying, and it goes something like, don't ever dim your light because your shining brightly makes others feel uncomfortable. And I also meet many women who play smaller than they are because of that very thing. Your tall poppy syndrome is a thing in Australia. And yet, look, you've worked hard for where you are now. You deserve everything that you've got. We all do. And why should it feel weird or make others feel weird, or should they even consider challenging you if you have put your accolades wherever you want them on the shelf on LinkedIn? I mean, so what? It's none of anybody else's business, really. So shine brightly, everyone. Shine brightly, whatever it is that you're doing. Have you ever been on LinkedIn and somebody else has commented about there being a humble brag post, or somebody's got an award and then somebody else says, oh, but you nominated yourself for that award, and straight away it sort of takes out that joy because somebody else feels awkward about that.
And that's what I realised with the example I was using. It wasn't me that was feeling funny using those words. It was the other people in the room that were making these comments. And I think you're right. LinkedIn's kind of a bigger platform for that sort of thing, where when people are uncomfortable themselves, they'll lash out at others. Yet, and unfortunately, a lot of that does tend to be gender-based or race-based as well. But if my name was Andrew and I was 6'4", et cetera, then there would be less of that challenge to whatever I was saying. And if I was a very loud personality type, then even more so. So it is interesting, because the last thing that I'm sure you would say, and I say to clients, is to change who you are. You want to be the most authentic and best version of you can be. And it can be challenging, because there's always going to be that other element there, isn't there, of people, the tall poppy syndrome that we have in Australia, or whatever else it might be.
Yeah. And I think that once you come to realize that not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. I think that for a lot of us, particularly women, when we are younger, certainly we spend a lot of time being people pleasers, and we want to be friends with people and we want everyone to like us, and that's not how the world works. And so we need to be okay with that. And it's about finding your own tribe and speaking to them, like you say, building yourself up with, or surrounding yourself with, other people who do appreciate what you do and are there to cheer you on. And then it feels more authentic, and you're less likely to fall into that trap of comparisonitis. And if you put something out there, wherever you put it, and it's a photo of you doing something that brings you joy, and you've had an amazing time and you were speaking on stage, like, why shouldn't you not be able to feel okay about putting that up? It's celebrate your wins and successes, however small. It's really important that we celebrate our wins. Often as business owners, we don't do that well. But we need to.
And a lot of the time it's because we're so busy running on to the next the next project.
True.
And I think that's very true about taking the time to actually enjoy and celebrate the successes, whatever they might be. And I think that social media and celebrating them on there is one of those, and like you've said, it can be a very dual-edged sword. So the fickleness of whether what you're posting and if you're being vulnerable, etc., how it can be supported, and other times that can be kind of attacked, because as soon as you put it in that outward platform, and I'm sure you work with, when doing the storytelling, with people around staying true to their own stories and not getting caught up in other people's thoughts or beliefs or opinions. I remember, it's funny we're talking about groups, because up until I went and studied some entrepreneurial courses, like many people, I might have said, oh yeah, I always wanted to write a book and never done it. And then I was suddenly around a group where everybody wrote books, and it became normalized. And the same with yourself and myself. We're in the Professional Speakers Association. So for many people, they'd rather die than stand up in front of people and speak. But we're in a group where it's, again, normalised to stand up in front of people and speak. So the power of surrounding yourself with people where whatever you want to do, be, or become,
Yeah.
It normalizes that everybody does it. It is so powerful.
Yeah.
So with the tools and the techniques, what do you think, because you have such an incredible toolkit, what do you think would be another couple of key points that you might share with people about if you do these sorts of things, rewrite the stories you're telling yourself, surround yourself with people that are doing the things that you want to do so that it becomes normalized that everybody writes a book or stands on stage, or only listen to the voices on LinkedIn or around you where it's people supporting you to grow and be vulnerable and be yourself. These are all great suggestions. What else would you say, Lisa?
In terms of storytelling, one thing that I recommend is to start a story bank. So start harnessing, capturing, finding your stories and put them somewhere, whether it's index cards in a box, if that's your thing, or a notebook, or even your phone or an app, so that you start to collect a database of stories that you can then use to teach and to make a point as part of your presentations. That's how we get better at storytelling. We've got to become a better story listener before we can become a better storyteller, and get used to sharing your stories from your personal life. But of course, in the business setting, we need to make them suitable for sharing a business lesson, but we're using experiences from our own life. In terms of the personal story, I think if we can get rid of that horrible condition, which is comparisonitis, we will all be better off. And it is so hard, particularly when you're starting out and you might see somebody who's doing something similar, or maybe you even consider them as one of your competitors. And let's say they've been in business for 3 years and you're comparing your today with their 3 years into the future. Of course, you're going to be behind. But once you start thinking, I'm not there yet, or I'll never be as good as them, that is really, really unhelpful. So as soon as we have a thought or words come out of our mouth that are not helpful at all, those I'm not enough or I can't type of statements, you really need to just stop and pause, take a deep breath and reframe that. I'm learning to, I will be in 2 years' time, or this is what I'm working towards. And as long as you're taking one step forward and you're failing forwards, as the saying goes, you're picking yourself up and you're evolving and you're changing and you're taking it a day at a time and getting the right support and help, whether it's working with coaches or mentors or watching TV shows, listening to podcasts around the self-development, and certainly surrounding yourself with people who are your cheerleaders, who want you to do well, who really encourage you and who are there to also celebrate your success with you. So get rid of and let go of the toxicity, and any people who are not doing those things, think about perhaps letting go of those relationships, because as we evolve and we change, then we've got to look back and ask ourselves that tough question: has that particular friendship or relationship done its time?
That's so true and so beautifully put again. I think it's very important, and the last few years have really shown how, when things start to change in the outside world or the outside environment quicker and quicker, and technology is going to make that faster and faster in many ways, being able to grow and develop and keep that forward focus. And sometimes it does mean letting go of the people and the relationships that served you. And I always like to thank and encourage people to thank people that may have been in lives, situations, circumstances that may have been in their lives before, but they have outgrown them or changed in some way. And so growing further into where you want to be and where you want to be going makes so much more sense. So these are all fabulous, fabulous tips and suggestions. And I guess the other quick question that I have for you is that you obviously made that transition, and many people watching will be also wondering, how can somebody go from working in a nursing sort of capacity through to administration in health services through to having their successful own business. And, where did you find the time to do the training to get the ideas about what kind of business you wanted to build?
Yeah.
Because many people nowadays are looking for something similar. So
Yeah.
what sort of advice might you give to them?
Well, I was very fortunate, as in working for the public service, there was access to flexible working arrangements. So that was a great bonus. And the way I chose to do it was I transitioned slowly. Now, some people around me, the naysayers in particular, said, what on earth are you doing leaving a stable, steady job in the public service at your age? And then others said, you've got to go cold turkey if you're serious about it, and you've got to resign and you've got to start your business. But I ignored both of those sets of advice, and I decided that the best thing for me would be to transition. So I got very good at negotiating. First of all, it was, can I drop to a 9-day fortnight, then a 4-day a week? So I had to get rid of some of the responsibilities, particularly around travel. I was doing a lot of travel. And then I was chosen to go on secondment. And as part of that, because I didn't particularly want to go, I was then able to negotiate a further drop in hours. So as I built my business, I reduced my time in my paid employment, which worked very well for the first sort of 6 to 8 months. Then the business got super busy, which meant I was working 6+ days a week. But I wanted to make sure that it was really what I wanted to do, and that I was going to have a really good crack at it and be successful before I cut ties completely with the public service. And I did that completely in 2017. So I started my business in 2014, then in 2017, went full-time and never looked back, and probably could have done it earlier. So it's whatever works for you. And some people find that they are put into that situation where cold turkey is the only option because they have been let go or they've taken a severance package. But I would say that if you've always had that burning desire to open a bookshop or a cafe or write your memoirs or get on stage, whatever it is, have a go. Have a go. And believe in yourself and your ability to try new things. Even later in age, I've just started learning to play bridge, and whoa, I'm rewiring parts of my brain that I've not used for decades, I'm sure. But I'm surprising myself because I'm actually able to do it with the right teachers, and I'm learning and I'm enjoying it. So you can absolutely do it. And I really love meeting fellow entrepreneurs who started at 40, 50, 60. I think that they bring so much wealth and life experience in order to be very successful at business.
Fabulous, and some really great tips there. And I really appreciate how you shared, it's finding what works for you, and sometimes there's a choice around that and sometimes there isn't. But I'm so grateful that our paths crossed, and that I was for the later part of that journey around as you have kept growing. And Lisa, as well, is being quite humble. She's now on the board for the professional speakers. So she kind of went from learning to speak to being on the board of the Speakers Association. So another great example of where by having that focus and the dedication and working at it, she's been incredibly successful. So if people wanted to get hold of you, Lisa, what would be the best way of following up from today?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you'll find me Lisa Evans. There's quite a few. Lisa Evans is a very common name. So Lisa Evans Perth or Lisa Evans Speaker. Probably you will get my profile up if you put the city or at least Australia in there as well.
Fabulous. And yes, for people looking for Lisa, she is based in Perth on the west coast of Australia, which is very, very far away from Sydney, where we're based. But also, Lisa, I'm sure, what would be the key insights or the key messages that you might give to yourself as a younger version of you?
Be yourself, be comfortable with who you are, and say yes to the opportunities that bring you joy and excitement.
Fabulous. And what a wonderful way to end this interview today and the session with the fabulous Lisa. Say yes. And I wholeheartedly agree, Lisa. Whatever age you are, just embracing life and embracing the joy that life can bring saying yes is such a wonderful way to do that. So thank you so very, very much for saying yes to me and being on the show today.
Thank you, Michele.
It's been a real pleasure having you here. And to everybody watching, it's been amazing again to be able to share in this very special time some incredible insights from the incredible Lisa Evans into how to create a successful mindset. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.